So let's first look at what is the purpose of why do I want to start this conversation? Because I think the time has arrived for all women to come out of the shadows, that we should be open about going through these processes and be able to speak openly about our symptoms. Like we talk a lot about hot flushes and we talk about night sweats, but do we ever really talk about vaginal dryness and what we can do about that? And we have women that suffer from sore vaginas that never want to talk about stuff like that. So I want us to realize that this is not subjects that we can't speak about to each other. I want to emphasize that nothing is off limits. I don't want you to feel ashamed about the fact that you are experiencing not the common symptoms of hot flashes and night sweats, and you might be experiencing something totally different from anybody else. So it's time for us to take charge of ourselves. And that's why we're having this conversation. And I think the big thing to remember is this change of life, as people like to talk about it, and I'm putting it in little air quotes because I hate that phrase, because it's just a normal phase of our lives, is just as normal as when we go through puberty and we start our periods. It's exactly the same thing. Now we're just getting to a point where we end this period. So let's talk about it. So it's also not a time that you need to slow down and think that you're getting old. It's not like that. It's actually a time where you have to start embracing your freedom. Because one, you don't need to worry about your period anymore. You don't need to plan any holiday around your period. You have freedom in sex because you ain't going to get pregnant anymore. You don't need to worry about family planning anymore. So all of that is gone. There's a lot of freedom that comes with going through menopause and being post-menopause. And so this is what I want to emphasize today. And what is the history behind menopause? So I actually went and I did some research, and it was very interesting. In 1880 was the first time that they acknowledged that there's a change happening in women. But unfortunately, in 1980 and up until almost 1960, it was seen as a curse. It was seen as women going crazy. They were put into mental institutions because they couldn't handle their emotions. They were burned on the stake for witchery because they would look at different options to try and treat their symptoms. And then in 1960, we became a little bit more enlightened, and a doctor actually went and acknowledged it and says it's a medical condition. And he called it the death of the womb. That's what it was called. And it was the living decay of the youth. But his goal with this book was actually to try and cure it so women don't lose their sex appeal. So it was a very man-driven motive behind all of this. So that's the history. But fast forward to 2023, there's a lot of research out there that has improved. So the three terminologies that's been thrown around a lot is the word menopause and peri-menopause and post-menopause. So what is the difference between these three stages? So let's first look at peri-menopause. So if you're still having your period, you are definitely in peri-menopause, judging by the face value of most of the people that's on this call. So peri-menopause marks the transitional phase, the phase that are leading up to menopause. So it typically starts around 40. So for some women, it can start a little bit earlier, and it will depend from person to person. It will depend on your genetical background. It will depend on your ethnic group. There's a lot of factors that go into consideration. Usually, if you started your period very late in life, you'll actually go into peri-menopause earlier, so that period will be shorter. And that's when your regular period used to be between 25 to 40 days apart. It will last between 3 to 7 days, will suddenly be very irregular, inconsistent. It can last for 10 days. It can be extreme heavy bleeding one period. It will be less bleeding the next one. So what is happening is that you are producing less hormones. And the two hormones that we will focus on is estrogen and progesterone. So that is two hormones that drives us most of our lives. And that is what happens in peri-menopause. So you're slowly starting to produce less of these hormones, and that's why you're getting this irregular periods, and you actually will start experience some mood swings, some sleep disturbances, and hot flashes. So the hot flashes will not be something that will come onto you just frequently and uncalled for. It will probably happen when you're in a stressful situation, or the kids are not behaving, or your husband is making you mad, or you're in a work situation, or there's some anxiety going on because you have to do a presentation at work, and you'll just feel like this sweat building up in the back of your neck. So that is just the start of this hot flashes. Your sleep will probably be a little bit more in the sense of you'll go to sleep, you'll wake up around 1 o'clock, you'll be wide awake for a while and then fall back asleep. So it won't be so severe, but there will be little warning signs that it's coming. And I think that is what has changed. 10 years ago, we did not really acknowledge perimenopause. We only acknowledged once a woman was really in full-blown menopause or post-menopause. So this is where, for the younger people or people that has not experienced menopause yet, where you can actually start taking notice of these symptoms and realizing that it is coming, that it's on its way, and there's a lot of steps that we can take, and I'll give you some tips at the end of this about how you can handle and go through all of this. So after perimenopause, we will hit menopause. Now, this is now where people don't understand. So menopause is not a period. It's not a long period. It's actually just one point in time. And that is that time when you've reached 12 months without a period. Boom. Once you've reached that day, that's your menopause day. After that, you are actually post-menopause. So once you've reached 12 months of no period, that is the time and point that you reach menopause. After that, you post-menopause. So unfortunately, you can go 11 months and 29 days without a period. And if you get a period at day 3 of month 12, you're starting that year over. So I'm sorry to say, if your period has been gone for 10 months and it suddenly comes back, you're counting those 12 months again from scratch. So what I want to tell you as well is that you have to remember that hormones are the messengers that communicate with nearly every cell in your body. So as the hormone starts depleting, these messages don't get sent out. And that's why we're experiencing all these symptoms, because there's just not enough hormones telling the body what it should do and how it should function. And that's why we start getting the hot flashes, the mood swings. We start getting this little python around your belly. You wake up one morning, you all know my yellow skirt story. You wake up one morning and suddenly your clothes don't fit you anymore, and you don't even know what happened to you because you didn't even eat more than what you normally do. So post-menopause, this is now when we've reached the certain point in time, 12 months, no period. The next day you are post-menopause. So during your lifetime, you produce 3 types of estrogen. So estron is your E1, estradiol is your E2, and estradiol is your E3. So E3, you would mostly just produce, and the levels will go up when you're pregnant. So it's not an estrogen that plays a big role in our lives unless you go through pregnancy. Okay. But estron and estradiol is the 2 estrogens that drives everything in your body. Okay. So the E1 is the one that you're going to keep producing post-menopause, but E2 is the one that flatlines. E2 is the one that goes, I've had enough of this, I'm done with you, you are on your own. So you will still produce estrogen, but it will only be estron. So it will only be the one of the 2 that will be produced. Okay. So what can we do? So now we know we don't have that estrogen anymore that we need, the E2 estrogen, we don't have that anymore. So what can we do? So first of all, if you have not had no periods for 12 months, I would say the first thing is to start tracking. Start tracking your periods, making sure that you know exactly when your last period was, so you can keep track of that. Secondly is to identify triggers. So for me, stuff that will trigger my hot flash is if I use alcohol. I know if I drink a glass of wine, if I have a cocktail, I will have a period of, not hot flashes, I'll have a night of not good sleeping. So I need to ask myself if I'm going to have some alcohol, if I'm prepared to know that the night is going to be sacrificed in not good sleeping. So I know this is one of my trigger points. So for hot flashes, my trigger point is sugar. If I eat too much sugar, if I consume too much sugary stuff like desserts and chocolates and whatever, oh man, for 2 or 3 days, my hot flashes are totally out of control. And then one of our clients that experiences is if you drop your fats too low, your hot flashes will come back. So it's very important, I'll touch on that a little bit later, is to make sure that you have a certain amount of fat in your daily diet. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit to say exactly how much fat. So if you drop your fats too low, your hot flashes will be, if you stop hot flashes, it will actually come back. So having said that, if you keep track of all of this and you know what's going on, then you are more in control. Then the second tip I want to tell is seek professional advice. In the sense, I'm not talking go to your GP. With what I'm saying is go and look for people that's done the research. So somebody that I follow, I hang on every word she says to me and she tells me, is Dr. Stacey Sims. She's done the research. She started off her research actually just researching endurance athletes and their periods and how they can use their periods to perform better. And now she's just brought out a book about post-menopause and how we can use the post-menopause to still be in a good shape and good athlete. And it doesn't matter, you don't need to be a professional athlete, just to have the best performance in the gym and get the most out of your workout. So Dr. Stacey Sims, you can follow on Facebook and Instagram, and she posts little things, and she has a podcast. She's extremely knowledgeable. I like everything about her except one thing. She says you don't need to track your food, and I don't agree. For me personally, I need to track my food. But for everything else, best advice you can follow. Okay. Then I think the next thing that you need to realize is prioritize self-care and a healthy lifestyle. So what do I mean with this? First of all, the first thing you need to do, you can work out 7 days a week. You can have the best diet in the life. But if you don't prioritize your sleep, you're not gonna get the benefits. So it's easy to sit here and say, oh, make sleep a priority. It's not always that easy, especially when you are post-menopause or you're going through peri-menopause. It's not easy to always have sleep. So one of the workshops that we're going to do in September, we'll talk specifically about how all the different stuff you can do. But the most important thing I can say is to have some downtime before you go to bed. So no electronics, no TV, nothing that can stimulate the brain to keep you awake. A good way to do it is maybe a nice evening walk before you go to bed, especially with the weather being nice now, or even reading, but not reading on your iPad. That's unfortunately one of those things that you can't do. You have to actually physically read a book. And then meditation, just some time by yourself. Think about the day, sum it up, whatever you want to do, some journaling, whatever helps. If your room is cool, that will help as well. There's a lot of natural supplements that you can try, that you can ask me about, that I can suggest for you, you can try and help, see if it helps you to fall asleep. And then just having a strict bedtime routine. Like 9:15, I go to my room, I brush my teeth, I go to bed, I have it half an hour before I turn off the light, sort of thing. So just something that you follow. Going to bed at the same time every night, trying to get up at the same time every morning. So just that consistent routine will help. If you work shift, it's a little bit hard. It's actually very hard for people that work shift because unfortunately there's an hour at night. I think it's between 11 and 12. 11 and 2, I can't remember now, that you actually produce the most, that you need the most sleep. So if you're a shift worker, you're actually losing out on that and you have to make it up. So that is a downfall for people that do shift work, for sure. Then the second thing that I want to emphasize today is strength training. And you know me, I tell you, lift as heavy as you can. Lift heavy stuff. This is what you're supposed to be doing as you go into peri-menopause, menopause, post-menopause. 2 to 3 times a week. If you are new at it, you can start with body weight. You don't need to worry, you won't become the Hulk. We don't have those hormones to build it. There's a lot of stuff that needs to fall into place before you will be like extremely muscular. The purpose for strength training is to build lean muscle mass, and I'll talk to you about it a little bit in the next one when we talk about protein. So the third thing you can focus on is your nutrition. So the best eating style to follow is the Mediterranean style. So that is eating in a way that is high in omega-3, 6, and 9. So it's a lot of fish, nuts, seeds, that type of thing. So This is why I want to talk to you about not dropping your fats under 50 grams a day. So when I say 50 grams a day, I don't mean like 50 grams of butter. What I mean is, as an example, a tablespoon of olive oil has 4.5 grams of fat in it. So that gives you an idea of how much fat we're talking about. So we're talking about a couple of tablespoons of olive oil to make up that 50 grams of oil. Never want to drop under 50 grams. So here we are back, low fat diets. This is not the time for a low fat diet. Believe me, it's not. It's not the time for keto at all, because you need the carbohydrates to produce all the energy, the glucose that you need. So in the workshop, I'll talk to you about intermittent fasting. There is a place for intermittent fasting, but it's not your go-to at this stage, because your body is already under so much stress, producing cortisol out of rhythm because you don't have the estrogen. You're putting more stress on your body when you do intermittent fasting, especially if you do long periods of intermittent fasting, and that's why you will actually produce more cortisol. There's nothing wrong with having 3 hours between meals. So one of the things that happens with you as well is insulin resistance. We can talk about that later as well. And to curb that is just to have 3 hours between a meal. So if I have lunch and I wait my 3 hours before I eat again, you can sort of get that insulin resistance back under control. Then the most important thing, if you don't take anything away from today except eat high protein, then you've scored. So I want to hang out here just for a little bit and talk about why. So when we are young, we were taught, eat your fruits and veggies. Our parents should have said, eat your protein, because protein is the building blocks of our bodies. So our bodies are mostly consist of water and protein. We break down that protein into amino acids, and the amino acids is what transfers all these essentials that we need for our body to build. So if we don't have protein, the body will actually break down the protein that it has available in the body, and that is your muscles. So it will break down your lean muscle mass. So if you undereat on protein or undereat on your calories, your body will actually go and break down your lean muscle mass to provide the protein. So sometimes if you go on a very low calorie diet or low fat diet and you drop a lot of weight, most of that weight might be lean muscle mass because you didn't have enough protein to keep it up. If you do drop down with low calories and you keep your protein high, your risk of losing all that lean muscle mass does become lower. So if I talk about a high in protein, how much grams I'm talking about is anywhere between, I would prefer 130 to 150, but if you need to, at 100 to 130 is a good way to start. Once again, as an example, one chicken breast, 100 grams of chicken breast will give you 30 grams of protein. So you're talking about 5 chicken breasts the size of the palm that you need to eat in a day to get to 100 grams of protein. So the reason we need this protein is, one, protein is a high thermic effect on the body, meaning that it takes calories to burn the protein. So if I eat a lot of protein, I'm actually burning more calories because my body needs to work harder to break down the protein. 2, if you eat protein and your body uses this energy to break it down, it boosts your metabolic rate. So your metabolic rate goes up. So as we age, our metabolic rate has a tendency to go down. There's 2 reasons for it. 1, because we're losing lean muscle mass, so there's not enough muscle in our bodies to keep our metabolic rate up. And 2, because we stop moving so much. We become more sedentary as we age. So that's why we need more protein. Another good reason for more protein is this one I'm forgetting. Oh, it helps you recover from intense workouts. I knew there was an important one. So if you were lifting heavy, you want to eat your protein because that's how you're going to recover. If you lift heavy, you basically, it's like taking a piece of paper and you're basically doing this to your muscle. So to repair that muscle, you need the protein, you need that amino acids. I want to emphasize here, protein can come from meat, fish, dairy, and plants. If you eat a plant-based diet, you need to combine certain plants to get all the essential. There's 9 essential amino acids, and plants don't give you all 9, where meat and fish does. But if you combine certain plants, you will get all 9 your amino acids. Okay. So, and the fourth tip I want to give to you is give yourself grace. This is a period in your life that is actually can span between 40 to 50% of your entire life. So most women will hit menopause at the age of 50. Most women will live until the age of 81. So that's what all the averages say. So if you look just at that numbers, it's 40% of your life you are spending post-menopause. Taking into consideration the 7 years or the 10 years that you were perimenopause, you spend 50% of your life in one of these phases. So you have to embrace it. And you have to give yourself grace. There's going to be great days and there's going to be sucky days. And it's getting up from the sucky days and embracing the good day every time. Because at the end of the day, this too shall pass. You will get to a stage where the symptoms are less, where you can control a lot of stuff you didn't have control about. I had severe food sensitivities, and I can really say lately that it's getting better. I couldn't do any dairy. Lately, I can do a little bit of dairy, and I'm fine. It doesn't push me over anymore. So there is hope. And remember, it's freedom. There's a lot of freedom that comes with it. And then how we view aging and all the social influences that are out there will impact how we actually experience menopause. If we want to be negative about it and listen to all the negative stuff out there, that we are done and we can't do this and we can't do that, that is how we will experience menopause. And that's how we will experience growing old. And just today or yesterday, the Guinness Book of Records actually acknowledged a woman. And I'm a little bit sad because I always said I want to be the oldest woman to run a marathon. And it used to be 87, but this woman is 93 and she's just completed a marathon. So she's just been acknowledged as the oldest woman to run it. So there's nothing to stop us. Maybe some bad knees, but the rest is good. Okay, in September, on the 16th and the 23rd of September, we're going to have an in-depth into menopause. We'll talk about insulin resistant, we'll talk about sleep, we'll talk about food sensitivities, we'll talk about what type of blood test do you need to do, what type of blood test can you do, what blood test is worth doing. But if you want some of those information in the meantime, just reach out. You can just ask. And if you have any questions, I don't see any questions in there, but you can just unmute yourself and ask me.
Sure. Recently, I've had a couple days where I will have to go back and think about what it was that I ate, but all of a sudden I had like massive bloating. And I mean, it wasn't gluten, it wasn't the dairy. And it was so bad that I was like in pain driving home or sitting and so uncomfortable. I wonder, now listening to what you said, that maybe I have a different food insensitivity or, but I'll have to figure it out.
Yeah, so what I would definitely do is that's where the journaling comes in. And like if you start logging your food, then you can have a picture, because definitely it's, for me, I can just talk about myself. My food sensitivities were literally like overnight. One day I will, like garlic bread. I used to eat garlic bread like it was nothing. No, one night I ate garlic bread and I was like you, I had like cramps. The next day I had an upset stomach. It was just awful. So garlic bread is off the table for me now. No.
I'm past the peri-menopause, so.
Yeah, you post-menopause. Yeah, and
no,
and,
post.
Yeah, you
Definitely
post-menopause for sure. And for you now is what you're doing is actually the right stuff. You're focusing on your protein. You're focusing on making good choices nutritional wise, and you show up for your strength training. Like Andrea is probably perimenopause at this stage, looking at the age group here. So for her, she's really setting herself up for success. She's been strength training probably for the last 6 years, consistently, 6, 7 years, I don't even know. She takes care of her nutrition. She's always asking the right questions. So I just think it's so enlightening that she could actually do it, because we didn't have that. I mean, strength training wasn't, we just did cardio. That's all we did. We just did Jane Fonda, man, step class, here we come. And now we don't do that endurance cardio anymore. It's all hit. Like if you do cardio, it's all hit. I've got one new message. Let me see. Yeah. So definitely, I agree with Robin. Probiotics will definitely help. If you struggle with bloating and you take probiotics on like every night, it definitely makes a big difference.
Okay.
Is there a specific one that you use, Robin, that you find better than the other ones?
I've been using one that's called Susafit, and I have a probiotic before each meal for 3 times a day,
Oh, okay.
and it really helps me.
Okay, then something else that I mentioned at the beginning, and I just want to mention it again so you know that we can talk about it, is that something that you will experience is vaginal dryness, and that is very common and it's easy to fix. You literally just go to London Drugs and you buy lubricant. Problem solved. So it's an easy fix. So you don't even need to worry about that. No reason not to have sex anymore. Unless you want to use it as an excuse. I don't know. Okay, any other questions? Anything that you think that that you would have liked to hear tonight that I didn't touch on? Please ask.
You didn't talk about hormone replacement therapy or anything. That's used to be the big thing that they always talked about, but then there was talk about breast cancer and how it causes or has issues, etc. So any insight?
Yeah, so I personally think that it's your decision. I am not going to influence you on what you want to do, because it's easy for me to sit here and say, I don't want to take it, but I didn't have severe symptoms. I did not suffer greatly from hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings. For me, it was, I could control it myself and I got over it. But if somebody is really struggling and that's the way you need to go, then I don't think it's for us to decide. You have to make that decision yourself. What I would suggest is, if you decide to take that route, is to go to like integrational health, where there's somebody that can give you the option of a natural hormone replacement compared to what's the word?
Synthetic.
Synthetic, thank you. To make sure that you make the right decision. I think if you can go without it, I think you're better off. What is true is, if you do hormone replacement, you will not struggle so much with the visceral fat, the fat around your midsection, for sure. It will be easier to control that. But what I always think is, at some stage you need to get off this. Unless you can carry on forever. And then I'm scared that I'm going to go through all these symptoms again, and I don't want to go through all of them again. Then I'll rather struggle a little bit and adjust my nutrition, or just be at ease with the fact that my six-pack isn't there. How many times do I actually wear it?
It's there. It's there. We just can't see it.
Exactly. It's just a little bit. There's just a little bit of plaster around it. So for me, it's just a personal thing. It's really up to you what you decide to do. So there's a very good clinic in it's exactly what Andrew says. They also weigh your cancer risk before prescribing HRT. So there's a very good clinic in Fort Langley, Integrational Health, Women's Health Clinic. That is a good option to go to if your symptoms are really bad, because they will start with the natural supplements before they would go. And they all medical doctors. They're not naturopaths. They're actually GPs that specializes in both. So yeah, memory loss is definitely, that's something my mom said, that when my mom grew up in the era where they just gave you the little thing that you the little patch that you wore, and she actually said the memory loss was quite bad with the HRT. But I mean, like, it's developed. My mom is now 86, so it's developed a lot.
Even without HRT and stuff, I find that memory loss is grasping for a word. You can't remember, you're I can't, you know what I mean? And then, it's still there.
Yeah. So it's actually more brain fog than memory loss. And that's one of the things that you will actually notice if you increase your omega-6, 3, 6, and 9s, that brain fog will become less. Because the more fats we can enter into our body, post-menopause, the better the brain function can become. Because it's unfortunate, because of the estrogen loss, that we don't have all these other things going. But with fat increase, it will actually improve.
I do agree with the tracking of the food now that I've been doing it for several months. I do know what my triggers are before this, and I just try to avoid them, like high sugars, not high fats, but high bad fats.
Yeah.
Carbohydrates, like crackers and cookies and chips and all that kind of stuff, they send me through the roof, and the hot flashes come on like you wouldn't believe. But if I control that and only have a little bit, I might get a warm flash or no flashes. So I just and alcohol, of course. So yeah.
Unfortunately, alcohol is a big one. Definitely the processed stuff. So always think about stuff. I always think about stuff that was made in a plant is not good for you. Stuff that comes from a plant is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So if you walk in the grocery store, think what's the origin? Where does this originally came from? Is it manufactured in a plant where there's a lot of processes going on, or did it go through one process or two processes? It's the same when you read the ingredient list. If the ingredients is 3 or 4 or 5, you're fine. I'm not talking about preservatives that they put in, because it's not all bad for us. I'm talking about it, but if there's a list of all these stuff that they've put in, then you can't pronounce a single word of them. That's when you start losing, maybe I should move on to something else. We were talking about it today. I don't know if Jane was still in the studio, about stuff that has changed for me. So I used to crave chocolate so bad. Like I would literally stand in the grocery line and the saliva would start building up if I see all the candy bars. And what made a big difference for me was when I started reading the labels. So I would actually be like, I'm going to buy this candy bar. And then I turn it around and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 48 grams of carbohydrates and 32 grams of fat and 450 calories. And I'm like, oh, okay, if I go home and I make a big salad, I can eat less calories with more nutritional value. So I started thinking about weighing it up, and I would maybe still buy a Diet Coke or something else just to keep myself busy, that at least I did buy something, and I would leave the store, not feeling empty-handed.
Well, I can speak. I've had, my hot flashes were all in my face to begin with, and I started when I was in my late 30s. And I'm now 50, and I don't get the flashes in the face anymore, but I get a little bit of the hot flash when I sleep from time to time, and it's usually, I can feel it coming. That is usually an indication that my period is about to start, because they get really bad then, and then they seem to ease off.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But I'm definitely still peri-menopause. I have not gone that 12 months.
Yeah,
I haven't even got a month, damn it.
It will be there before you know.
So now I guess I just have to figure out what my triggers are, other than closer to my cycle. But as you say, if I start journaling what I'm eating, and sort of, now I've been more accountable to you for my fitness in the last little bit, that will hopefully help me figure out, okay, if I'm eating all of this beforehand, then that's what causes the issue, or I'll have it when it's not close to my period and sort that out.
Yeah. So a way to log is, so you can use any of the apps like Chronometer, MyFitnessPal, whatever works the best for you. There's a lot of them. And even for you, you don't even need to log like quantities. You can just like log what you were eating. Mm-hmm. So you at least know, so you have a track record of what you were eating. So it doesn't even matter, just log whatever. So you just know mm-hmm. on the volume.
Okay.
And then if you experience this hot flush coming on, then you can actually look, okay, so it was 4 days before my period that I had it, and this is the foods that I was eating leading up to that day. And then, okay, let's eliminate this one food the next time 4 days leading up to my period and see if it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Susa, for being so open about your experience and sharing all of this information with all of us. It's obviously not the taboo subject that it was when I was younger, and I don't have my mom to ask these questions of, and have no idea what she went through, because she had a hysterectomy right after my brother was born. So thank you for sharing and being open about it all.
It's a pleasure. And you know me, I can talk about anything. It doesn't bother me. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thank you.
I was so happy to see everybody's faces, and hopefully we will see you guys again. So have a good one, everybody. Have a good evening.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.